Let's take you now to this event. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya is hosting a media briefing to update the public on the President's Diary program and address topical issues of interest. Let's listen in.
Okay, good afternoon, colleagues. We're ready. Thank you very much for coming. I'm terribly sorry for bringing you to Victoria. But I think by the time we finish here, the traffic will have cleared and you will have a smooth ride home. Okay, shall we start? Let's start with tomorrow. As South Africa begins a process of a national dialogue, which is a long-term process to rebuild trust, address the deepest societal challenges, and shape a shared future, President Ramaphosa will on Friday, the 15th of August, lead the government delegation and officially open the first national convention, which will be an agenda-setting and a roadmap process to chart a way forward for an all-inclusive and citizens-led dialogue. The first national convention will be held as from tomorrow until the 17th of August at the University of South Africa at the ZK Matthews Great Hall in Pretoria. The convention will bring together about 1,000 delegates representing the diversity of the South African nation, from government to political leaders to civil society, business, labor, traditional leaders, religious leaders, cultural workers, sports organizations, women, youth, community voices, amongst others. The National Dialogue will kick off with the first National Convention and it will end with the second National Convention. The second National Convention will be consolidating the outcomes through a People's Compact with commitments for citizens, sectors, government, business, labor, civil society, families, and looking at how we heal and rebuild our nation. The National Dialogue is aimed at re-energizing communities and citizen agency. The word-based and citizen-initiated dialogues will develop community action plans and sectoral compacts for sustained people-led development, mutual accountability, strengthening of civil society, and deepening our democracy. The National Dialogue Roadmap envisages an inclusive, intergenerational, citizen-led process of dialogue that reaches every corner of our land in all sectors. The National Dialogue is a process of learning by doing, sharing, problem-solving, and listening to each other as we co-create the People's Commons. The President appointed the Eminent Persons Group, which is drawn from across all sectors of society, to develop a concrete plan to ensure the dialogue is inclusive, transparent, and truly reflective of the voices of all South Africans. The President also appointed an interministerial committee under the chairship and guidance of the Deputy President Paul Mashatile to coordinate government's contribution to the National Dialogue. Following the convention, the dialogue process will unfold in phases through extensive sectoral engagements and community dialogues across rural and urban areas to ensure participatory process and contribution by all citizens to directly shape the agenda and outcomes of the National Dialogue. Dialogue presents an opportunity to forge a national compact that outlines clear commitments and responsibilities for various stakeholders. Then we move to the 17th of August, where the President will attend the Southern African Development Community, SADC, 45th Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government at the Ivato Conference Center in Antananarivo in the Republic of Madagascar. The summit is a historic moment for Madagascar following the August 2005. Hosted under the theme Advancing Industrialization, Agricultural Transformation, and Energy Transition for a Resilient SADC, the summit will focus on integration through key pillars, strengthening industrial capacity and regional value chains, modernizing agriculture, and promoting an inclusive energy transition, all aimed at building a resilient, sustainable, and cohesive SADC region. During the summit, His Excellency Mr. Andry Rajoelina, President of the Republic of Madagascar, will officially assume the SADC chairship, succeeding His Excellency Dr. Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. The summit will review progress on the implementation of the SADC Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan of 2020 to 2030, and it will also consider the report from the chairperson of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, as well as review achievements under the 44th Summit theme, which was promoting innovation to unlock opportunities for sustained economic growth and development towards an industrialized SADC. At the same summit, South Africa will formally accept its chairship of the regional community for the year 2026 to 2027. At the back of the SADC summit, President Ramaphosa will lead South Africa's high-level delegation participation to the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, known as TICAD in Japan. The 9th TICAD Summit will convene in Yokohama from the 20th to the 22nd of August under the theme People, Planet, Prosperity in a Changing World. Launched by Japan in 1993, TICAD is co-hosted with the UN, UNDP, World Bank, African Union Commission, and has become a premier or one of the premier forums for African development. Grounded in African ownership and international partnership, TICAD has steadily evolved from conflict prevention and human security to economic transformation, innovation, and universal health coverage. The President will also address a South Africa-Japan business engagement in Yokohama. Bilateral trade between Japan and South Africa has been expanding since the establishment of full diplomatic relations in 1992. Japan is one of the major investors in the South African economy and has a presence of close to or over 273 companies, which sustains over 200,000 local jobs. TICAD 9 will gather over 20 African heads of state and government, senior AU, UN, World Bank, AFDB leadership, philanthropic role players, as well as bilateral partners, including the G7, G20, as well as BRICS. So we will end there on the President's program and open the floor to questions. And maybe before we do that, just to cover the one issue that is obviously of concern that has been making the headlines with respect to General Mapanya's visit to Iran. The South African Defense Force is in by bilateral and multilateral frameworks to forge ties with other military forces around the world. The exchange of knowledge and the strengthening of professional military-to-military cooperation is encouraged within our government system. This includes joint training drills with other countries, cooperation on peacekeeping, as well as rescue missions during natural disasters. However, senior military officers outside of their military purview, nor do they represent the country on foreign policy matters, and neither are they delegated to perform such functions. Okay, colleagues, open the floor to questions. You had your hand up immediately. Just please remind me your name again.
My name is Yamtanda Kapa from News 24.
Ah, yes, Yamtanda, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, and you?
Long time no see.
Yes.
That's why I don't remember her name. You don't come here often.
I don't. Amanda comes. Anyway, thank you for that. The first questions are on the National Convention. There's been a lot of controversy around this gathering. Just today, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, has said that he's not going to attend. Does the president think this gathering still holds the legitimacy that he had hoped it would initially? And then, with regards to the general, was the president aware of General Mapanya's trip to Iran? Did the president authorize or sanction this visit? Considering the strained relations between Pretoria and Washington, does the presidency find the timing of this visit concerning? And lastly, is the president concerned that the trip might further aggravate relations between Pretoria and Washington? Thank you.
Okay, maybe because you asked so many questions, let me just deal with them. Then we'll move on to the next round. It was the National Convention, right? And then the Iran visit. Okay. There's no controversy insofar as the national dialogue process is concerned, and also with respect to the National Convention that will be held tomorrow to kick off the national dialogue process. What we have is a dispute that has been declared by 7 or so foundations who do not represent the majority of South Africans, albeit they are entities of high standing and they are respected based on the standing of the stalwarts they are named after. Be that as it may, the issue is also not over the actual national dialogue. The issue that these foundations have is with the state of preparedness, funding of the National Convention, as well as what I will call their misinterpretation with respect to whether this is a citizens-led process or not. Those are the issues. In the meeting they held with the president, they expressed their concerns on these issues. There was a genuine and earnest attempt to address those concerns. The president, with all humility, expressed his anxiety over the postponement of the National Convention because a great deal of preparation had taken place for the National Convention to take place and commence the dialogue process. Invitations had gone out. Delegates representing organizations from across society had begun making preparations to attend the National Convention. Therefore, it will have been a great deal of inconvenience, not only to just 7 foundations, but to close to 100 civil society organizations and many other sectoral groups that had committed to attend the National Convention. And therefore, the president felt that those issues of concern must be resolved in parallel to proceeding with the holding of the first National Convention. And the president expected that those foundations will remain part of the preparatory task team, which they'd been part of. And at no time did that PTT, or was that PTT rather dominated by government. That PTT always had far more representation of civil society as well as foundation than it did of various government role players. Notwithstanding that, the foundations then committed that they will still participate in the national dialogue process, albeit after withdrawing from the preparatory task team. So the president's expectation is that the foundations will continue participating. They committed to doing so. They further committed to continue mobilizing all sectors of society around participating in the national dialogue. And therefore, the President does not believe that the process is mired in controversy. We understand the facts to be as I've related to them, that there was an issue in the process, or there were issues in the process of preparations, and there was a very genuine attempt to address those issues. As things stand, the President is satisfied that a number of those issues have been addressed, and that we will have a successful first national convention tomorrow. It is possible and likely that when you undertake an endeavor of this nature, one or two things are bound to go wrong. You are likely to have some teething problems. And the President made that admission to the foundations and said he will be the first person to take criticism and accept responsibility for those elements that will not live up to the expectations of those participating, as well as the expectations of the country. But with all of that, the National Convention must still continue. And so there will be engagements through the IMC with the foundations. They will continue to be engaged. They will be heard, and with the view that, like all other South Africans, their voice is important, and that they contribute to the national dialogue process. On Iran and the general's visit, did the President know that the general was visiting Iran? Neither did he sanction that visit. The general's sort of administrative process for travel approval starts and ends with the minister. As much as the President is the appointing authority and the commander-in-chief, he does not get involved in supervising the general's travel. That process sits with the minister. So the President did not know. Is there concern? Yes, there is a concern. At this period of heightened geopolitical tensions, as well as conflict in the Middle East, one can say the visit was ill-advised, and more so the expectation is that the general should have been a lot more circumspect with the comments he makes, which delve into the area of foreign policy that only the President, as well as the Department of International Relations, are responsible for, and does not fall in the purview of the officers. We are in a process of managing a very delicate exercise of one, resetting diplomatic relations with the United States, resetting political relations with the US, but more importantly, balancing the trade relationship in such a manner that that trade relationship is mutually beneficial. And therefore, it is indeed not helpful that when of resolving the relationship or resolving issues around the relationship with the US, you then have senior government or military officials in statements that will inflame the situation. It is not helpful at all. In managing it, we're also balancing responding to a lot of disinformation that comes out of Washington, and certainly from some quarters within our own borders, at the same time trying to get the best we can get out of this very important relationship with the US. And so it is important that we are all aligned in terms of one message coming out of government, and we are all aligned on recognizing the importance of the diplomatic exercise that is currently underway with the United States, and that we ensure that we do not do anything in the process to undermine those relations. There was a hand over there. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Zoleka Kodashe from Newsroom Africa. Just in relation to the former president and the letter that he sent confirming that he would not attend tomorrow, he says that the engagement tomorrow is not the first convention that is to take place. And in fact, there have been several others that have preceded tomorrow's event. Can we get the response on that, please? As well as, you said there would be about, I think, 1,000 delegates in attendance tomorrow or at the convention. Do you think, particularly in light of the pulling out of these foundations, as well as other political parties, that it is truly representative of South Africa, as you mentioned, given the fact that we also heard this week from the employment figures that about 6.4 million South Africans have been unemployed for about 12 months or more. Do you think that the convention this weekend will be reflective of the South Africa that we live in? The former president has also mentioned that there's a South Africa that is black and one that is white, and those deepening levels of inequality. And the gathering this weekend, will it be reflective of some of the issues that bedevil the country? Thank you.
So I think, unfortunately, there's just a lot of confusion, as well as, there's a lot of confusion around certain terminologies that relate to the national dialogue. The National Convention is well understood to be a platform in which sectoral groups as well as organizations representing all of our society will be participating. The National Convention is not the actual dialogue. However, it is a platform where the agenda for the national dialogue will be set and agreed. The roadmap for the rollout of the actual national dialogue will also be agreed and affirmed. And so I don't think it's proper to then begin to question its inclusiveness, whereas it's always been understood to mean that it's the kickoff of the dialogue process, and out of the National Convention, we will then get a clear roadmap of how dialogues are going to ensue in communities, in wards, and districts, amongst different sectoral groups, etc. And so at the end of this 9-month process, all South Africans will have had an opportunity to participate. The nature of the dialogue exercise cannot be questioned. With respect to the National Convention and the withdrawal of 7 foundations, as I've said, with all due respect, these foundations do not represent the majority of South Africans. They were never set up to be constituency groups, as far as we understand them, unless that has changed. They do not represent any particular constituency. We now are sitting close to 1,000 confirmed delegates. And so it will be inclusive. The convention will be representative of all sectors of our society through the different formations and groups that have accepted invitations to attend. And the team, the organizing team, has taken a great deal of care to ensure that all sectors of our society will be represented tomorrow at the National Convention. So I think it's important that we sustain that distinction between the convention, what the convention is meant to achieve, its objectives, versus the actual dialogue process, which cannot be held in UNISA over 2 days. The dialogue process has to go out there in the streets, in communities, households, different sectoral groups, industries, business, you name it. It can't be held over 2 days at a university campus. I mean, that will be illogical and almost impossible. And so the conflation of these two is rather unfortunate. The credibility of the dialogue is not a once-off exercise between tomorrow and Saturday, or between tomorrow and Sunday. The credibility of the national dialogue is going to be the level of participation across communities once again, and what's going to come out of that process as outcomes. And that credibility cannot be determined by one person, neither can it be determined by 7 organizations or foundations. South Africa is much bigger than any one individual or any other foundations. One would have loved, it would have been great to have the former president there, but if he's not there, he's not there. The reality is that the show will go on, and South Africans will continue with the dialogue process, and hopefully at some point, not only the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, but other foundations will find it amongst themselves to participate in the process and realize that there is no benefit out of boycotting the people of South Africa. They're not boycotting the president, they're not boycotting government, they're boycotting the people of South Africa in their exercise through this national dialogue. And this national dialogue does not belong to the president, nor does it belong to government. It belongs to all South Africans. And therefore, those who choose not to participate are not in any shape or form disadvantaging the president in any way, or government for that matter. Lizega, and then we'll come to you, Vital.
Good evening. I've got a couple of questions for you, Vincent.
Dear. Okay.
What's
a couple, Lizega? 6
questions.
And you're going to ask all of them now?
I can ask half and then ask half.
Yeah, ask
in
half.
The next round.
Yeah.
Just as it relates to the SANDF general, I don't want to butcher his name. Where is he now? Is he still in Iran? Can you just clarify where he is now? There are calls also by the DA for him to be court-martialed, and given that you've already stated that you're managing a very delicate exercise with the United States in terms of researching your relationship, this is a diplomatic blunder, and I think you've put it that way yourself. What are the consequences for this, for the general? And then going into the national dialogue, Mr. John Steenhuisen had indicated that the DA would pull out of the dialogue, and he was part of the IMC. Can you give us any updates as to whether Mr. John Steenhuisen is part of that IMC and is participating in that IMC? Given that you had made quite a strong ultimatum to him as the presidency in terms of whether he would pull out or not. And the last question for this round, in terms of the relationship between the president and the former president, what is the incumbent's or the president's position about former President Thabo Mbeki? Given that, I mean, this is not the first time where former President Thabo Mbeki has made strong statements, whether it be about the president himself or about the government. What is the position of the president in terms of the former president? Does he have the same view as some who say that he is attempting to rule from the grave? Thank you.
Maybe let me start with your last one, Lizak, and just get that out of the way. Look, for President Ramaphosa, the relationship with former President Mbeki is one that is cordial, or rather call it comradely cordial as well as professional. With observations around what the former president is attempting to do, the president will not venture into that. We'll leave that to your good self and others who observe developments as they occur in the political space. Suffice to say, one has noted that President Ramaphosa is by far the most publicly criticized and attacked president by his predecessors, which is a slight departure from the sort of unwritten rule in terms of of the courtesy that former president grant to a sitting president. With that, the president also recognizes and accepts that he's not above criticism, and that we live in a democracy where there is free speech and people are welcome to openly criticize him. That's not something that he loses sleep over, of many issues that he has to worry about. Minister Steenhuisen, Lizaka, to be honest with you, I don't know if he has been participating or not, but I think, to be honest with you, it's neither here nor there. The IMC has made a great deal of progress, even in getting us to this point with respect to the National Convention. More importantly, the IMC has done a stellar job in ensuring that we continue to drive costs down with respect to securing a lot of sponsorship for the convention and ensuring that there's no extra pressure that is placed on the fiscus, so to speak. And so the IMC has been operating quite well. If Minister Steenhuisen has not participated, I don't think that has created any gaps in the IMC. Maybe some of his colleagues may have missed him, but I don't think the IMC as such would have suffered. Consequences for the general, I can't comment on that, Lizega. The general, I'm told, is back to your earlier question. Where is he now? And I will safely assume that in the course of the next week or so, the president will have an opportunity to meet with the general. He does have quite a hectic travel schedule, as I've explained in his public program, and so I can't say when that meeting will happen, but there will be an engagement between the president and the general. So it's still early to say what the outcome of that engagement will be. With respect to DA calls for a court-martial, it's also difficult to speak to. One will have to look at really what constitutes the sort of grave nature of charges or accusations that will require a court-martial, so to speak. Okay, that's Lizega's half done. We'll come back to you, Lizega. Vital?
Vitaly Markachev, Tass News Agency. Thank you very much. Two questions. First question about the meeting in Alaska between two presidents, and the next one about the BRICS planning session, video session. The first about Ukraine. South Africa play a major role in the... Sorry,
Vital, just the first question was?
About Alaska, meeting between President Putin and President Trump.
Yes.
Tomorrow, you know.
Yes.
South Africa play a major role in the looking for the resolving the crisis in Ukraine.
Yeah.
What will be positive outcome of the meeting in Anchorage between President Putin and President Trump? What you wish for as the presidency, and how you see the next move, if it should be done? And about the BRICS, Lula called several leaders. I don't know if he called today President Ramaphosa about the video conference next week related to the situation in the...
Sorry, just repeat that. President Lula called world leaders on...
No, BRICS leaders.
BRICS leaders on?
The core BRICS leaders.
Yes.
And I don't know if he called today, President Ramaphosa will call later, but Lula proposed to make a video conference on the, I think, on the 5 countries, BRICS countries, core countries, to discuss the situation in the world economy and the US tariffs. Could you make any comments on this? Thank you.
Okay, let me start with your last question, Vichali. The President is scheduled to receive a phone call from President Lula this coming Saturday, as things stand. We will endeavor, as we always do, to communicate after that phone call. However, as you know, with President's schedules, things do change. But as things stand, that call is scheduled for this coming Saturday. So I hope that settles your first question. The Alaska meeting between President Putin and President Trump, President Ramaphosa sees that meeting as part of the ongoing process, or rather part of the ongoing efforts to get a peace process going with respect to the peaceful resolution of the conflict in Ukraine. I don't think one can place a lot of expectations on one meeting between two leaders over a conflict that has other affected as well as interested parties. But nonetheless, it is a positive development that meeting will be taking place. And President Ramaphosa certainly hopes that meeting will set forth a process that will get us into actual peace negotiations between all key parties. You are quite correct in your preamble to your question that South Africa has played quite a role and South Africa remains involved. You will have noticed that last week, I think, the President in 1 week had spoken to President Trump, President Putin, as well as President Zelensky. And so President Ramaphosa has been well briefed on the developments leading up to this meeting in Alaska, as well as the perspectives of all the key parties to that conflict. And it is his hope that the Alaska meeting will set off a process that will get us to peace negotiations and ultimately a resolution of that conflict. What should be the next move? Well, the next move should be an inclusive dialogue process of the parties concerned, both affected as well as interested parties. By interested parties, the United States, the European Union, as well as other parties that have a stake in seeing a peaceful outcome reasonably soon. And that dialogue process should be inclusive, as the President has indicated many times. Okay. Yes, my brother.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
It's Michael from the SABC Channel Africa. One of my questions has been, covered by my brother Vital. Mr. Magwenya, how far are the diplomatic engagements with Eswatini in regard to U.S. deportees? The second one is on Gaza. Several Western nations have announced recognizing Palestine as a state at the UN General Assembly. What does that mean to South Africa following the genocide ICJ case and the backlash thereof?
We start with the recognition of Palestine by a number of Western countries. It's about time. It's about time that we get more and more countries recognizing the historical reality that Palestinians are deserving of nationhood. They do have a right to exist and a right to determine and shape their own future free from occupation and free from constant barrage of military attacks, as well as genocidal sort of attacks as we've experienced. And therefore, from a South African point of view, we are delighted that more and more nations are recognizing that this right needs to be given practical meaning. It can't just be in theory and in words. So that is a very positive development, but it's not enough. The expectation is that those countries must use their influence and their power to continue prevailing on the state of Israel, to reassess its approach towards Gaza, to commit to a permanent ceasefire, and more importantly, to commit to a roadmap that will give effect to this two-state solution that has been spoken about for many decades. Diplomatic engagements, yes, there have been engagements between Eswatini as well as South Africa, and there have been some assurances that have been given by Eswatini. I will stop there and say those engagements will continue. South Africa's concerns about that whole exercise are well documented and are well known, and Eswatini has so far undertaken to ensure that none of those individuals escape their care and find themselves in South Africa. Do I go back to Lizaga's long list of questions? You covered. So my answers were that comprehensive. Oh, brilliant. Any takers? Silence from EWN. Very unusual silence. I hope you've not been impacted by Orlando Pirates' recent performance. But you're not alone there. We share the same pain. Zoleg, are you happy? You think so? Okay. Colleagues, then that brings us to the end of this media briefing. Hopefully we'll see you all. Oh, sorry, Sidwell, you've got questions from the WhatsApp line. Okay, how many questions do you have?
There is actually...
Turn your mic on. Is it on?
Yeah. There is actually two questions because one from, actually they are both from the Daily Maverick, Peter Patricius. I think the first question we have dealt with it thoroughly, but I think one aspect we wanted to know if the president is going to take any action against the SANDF chief.
Yeah, we've dealt with that question.
Yeah, so the second one is two former Madagascar presidents have written to SADC demanding that it should not appoint President Rajolina as the next SADC chairperson on Sunday because he has not implemented the SADC roadmap for restoring Madagascar to normality after the 2009 coup, and also because he has acquired French citizenship, which should constitutionally disqualify him from being Madagascar president, and therefore SADC chairperson. Does South Africa support this appeal? That's the last one.
Sure. Peter. One, that issue sounds like a domestic issue that needs to be resolved within the ambit of domestic laws that guide participation in elections, and also that guide the criteria for the ascension into the office of the president of that particular country. Peter will know that SADC is a consensus-based organization where the issues SADC leaders always choose to get together and discuss those issues. It is quite late in the process now that, without speaking for SADC, that SADC will opt for a reversal of the commitment to have Madagascar chair the community group. So that those issues really are not for South Africa to ventilate on, but are mostly issues that can be resolved domestically amongst various role players. Was that it? Okay. Before Lizega changes his mind, that brings us to the end of this media briefing. Thank you so much, colleagues.
All right,
I'm
well,
also
that's a
trying-
wrap of the presidential spokesperson's briefing. Vincent Magwenya saying there that President Cyril Ramaphosa is confident that the National Dialogue Convention will go well tomorrow.